Hello everyone, I'm John Bossart and I'm an HP Solution Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions from HP. In this series, we're going to explore 3Par StoreServ solutions. And what I plan on doing is showing you a slide from a popular PowerPoint that you might see, and then I'm going to demonstrate what that means within the 3Par management console. So with that being said, let's begin. Today we're going to talk about HP's 3Par thin provisioning technologies and how they interact with the Windows 2012 server environment. So let's give an overview of thin provisioning itself as far as 3Par StoreServ is concerned. So certainly we could create a 100 gig volume and present that to a system, and if the operating system and the data only take 20 gigs of space, right, we will only use 20 gigs on the back-end storage, even though the operating system thinks it has 100 gigs to use. Right, so this is a good thing, even though we can overutilize the storage on our back end. Right, we can buy the storage that we need today at today's prices and the storage that we need tomorrow at tomorrow's prices. So certainly this solution is expandable, so when you need more storage you can add it in, you can get extra storage in the environment. So that's a good thing, because most of us tend to over provision our environments, and we don't tend to use that storage. And I've seen some numbers out there, something on the order of we tend to over provision our environment about 80%. But even if it was a smaller number, we'd still get tremendous amount of savings at being able to reutilize that storage in the back end. We just don't ever, we're afraid of ever filling up our volume. Right, so we could certainly start thin, but we can also stay thin. So we'll say that same 100 gig volume, the operating system and the data take up 20 gigs, and we'll say that we add an extra 10 gigs of data in that environment. So the volume grows from 20 gigs to 30 gigs. So certainly with anybody else's thin provisioning technology, on the back end, we'll consume up to 30 gigs of space. Once again, even though the operating system thinks it has 100 gigs of space. But the magic with 3Par thin provisioning technologies is they have a specially designed ASIC that does zero detect, and actually can detect if there's been a deletion that's been performed on the back end. So we'll say in our example, we delete that extra 10 gigs of data. So the volume grew from 20 gigs to 30 gigs, and then it shrunk back down to 20 gigs because of this deletion. So with anybody else's thin provisioning technology, because it's done within software, right, they'll hold on to that space. So they'll stay at 30 gigs, and you get this gradual fattening up of thin provision volumes that happen. But with 3Par and their ASIC, they have the ability to detect that deletion has happened and actually be able to recapture back that space in an environment. Right, so we could grow from 20 gigs to 30 gigs and then shrink back down to 20 gigs if we need to. Now they say get thin because if you convert from anybody else's storage solutions into a 3Par storage solution using their thin provisioning technology, you have the ability to greater utilize your storage. And I'll say that you'll save the storage costs at about 50% on your back end. And that is because their thin provisioning technology is done within an ASIC, so there isn't necessarily a performance hit that's going to happen by using a 3Par thin provision solution. And that's not the case with other storage vendors whose thin provisioning technologies are done within software. Also, because they have this ability to recapture back space, and other thin provisioning technologies on the market actually fatten up over time, right? We have the ability with these two solutions to be able to use the storage at a greater degree. And again, you could save up to 50% of your storage costs within the environment. All right, so that's kind of the discussion that goes around this slide. So let's kind of explore what this does in a Windows 2012 environment. All right, here's my 3Par management console. I got virtual volumes opened here. If you want to know a little bit more about the basic management of this environment, I'd recommend going back to the Chunklets and CPGs video that I recorded. And then I'll kind of give you an overview of the management within the infrastructure. But we have this virtual volume here, and it's been exported to this system over here, which actually is this guy right here. This is 2012 server. All right, so let's kind of go in and edit this volume a little bit and just take a look at it. So I'll edit this volume. Got some basic information here, the name of the volume, the common provisioning group we're using. It's about 20 gigs in size. What I really want to do is put the check mark in to show you the advanced options, and then we'll move forward. So to enable this ASIC, you have to put the check mark in this box. It's done automatically in 3Par storage solutions, the newer 3Par storage solutions. But just so you know, if you ever didn't want to use the ASIC for zero detect, you could uncheck that box. But right there it is inside the interface. can move forward, and then we can cancel. All right. So like I said, this has been exported to this system, which is this guy right down here. Okay. We're also going to monitor the storage space on the back end. So I've got this utility over here that gives us a graphical representation of the utilized storage in the environment. That's our storage, that's our 3-part storage system, and that's the volume there. So let's start monitoring it. All right, you can see we're using about 100 megs on the back end. All right. This number actually comes from here. So if I do a show virtual volume -s, right, there's our volume right here, and that's actually the space is being used right there. Use space. All right, so let's start adding some data to this volume. So we'll bring this up. Here's that volume, that 20 gig volume. Nice and clean. So I've got some large files here we're going to place on it. I have a couple different files. I have one 9 gig file that's random data. All right, it's got random ones and zeros that run through it. I'll place that down in the environment. And I also have a 9 gig file that's just straight zeros within the infrastructure. So we'll copy this, and then we'll place that down on this new volume here. All right, so we're getting a pretty decent transfer rate here. All right, we can see the data is being written. We can see the cache is dumping out onto the storage. All right, and we can check ourselves over here inside the CLI. And you can see we've grown already to about 6 gigs of space. All right, so the data is moving. We're just about finished copying there. So the data has been copied. On the back end, we're about at 9 gigs. All right, so we've used about 9 gigs of space in the back end. All right, so let's go back into the interface, and let's just drop down this 0 data file. Wrong volume. Let's place that down. You notice the transfer rate is incredible on this because, again, the ASIC has detected that it's just straight zeros going through this, and it's blocking those from necessarily being written on the back end and writing placeholders back there. If we notice over here, we're not consuming any additional space on the back end. All right, we're still using the 9 gigs of space from the original file. So even though this volume, this 20 gig volume, looks to be completely filled, right? It's only actually utilizing 9 gigs on the back end. So let's open this up. There's our file. Let's go look at the file system itself, and we could see that we're only about 2 gigs from filling up that 20 gig volume. All right. So let's go back inside here, and let's actually go back and delete these files. All right, so we've deleted these files. All right, and we'll notice in a little bit the storage space will actually recapture itself. So we'll do another show virtual volume. We're about at 9 gigs right now, and as we can see right now, we're starting to recapture back the space. And again, we'll do that in the command line. You can see that we're already at about 4 gigs of space being utilized. All right, so with 3-par thin provisioning technology and Windows Server 2012, we certainly can easily grow and contract the space that we need within the environment based on what the server or the application actually needs within the infrastructure. So you could create a nice thinly provisioned volume, right? And if the data grows and contracts within the environment, you don't have to worry about how much storage space you're using on the back end. Right? You can be rest assured that even though you're using thin provisioning technology, you're getting the maximum amount of performance in the environment as well as the maximum amount of storage utilization on the back end. So that being said, I'd like to conclude this demo and have a nice day.